never know really what I'm doing. I have a little inkling of where to start, and I'll know when something's finished, but along the way there's lots of diversions and dips and weaves.
I see things in the world that are just quite ordinary, but then they become extraordinary the more you look at them.
The craft, if there is such a thing as craft in my work, it's about looking, it's about arranging materials, it's about titling something, it's about representing it.
I feel I've mostly been an artist always, but it doesn't mean that my art's any good.
Studio orientated. I'm always much more happy being out and about.
I'm a bit of a grasshopper, so I'm not really doing one thing all day. So there's always lots of little things happening.
So today is very slightly chaotic. I've got quite a few things to do. I've got a show coming up, so I've kind of got lots to finish, lots of things off. I realise a lot of my work over the last year or so has been about the streets, because that's where I am most of the time. I start to hone in on certain things and they become a little bit of an obsession, and then I usually have to do something about them. Thank God I'm an artist. I'm going to stop and I'll take a quick photo of something I've been eyeing up for a while. Where is it? It's there. I'm just going to pull over and take a quick iPhone pic.
I love urban spaces. I was born in the countryside and I was kind of pretty phobic about urban spaces for a long time, but now I live in London, which I have since 1984. I don't think I could ever leave it. I mean, it's just continually throwing up stuff that I love.
What I love about this sign is it says stop somewhat urgently, but because the sign's so old and it's getting so decrepit now, it just feels like this urgent word is weathered with age, and I really like the kind of contradiction of that, And I think if I make an image of this, what I'd do is get rid of all the other words around it and just have the word stop in a black background set with all the aging around it, so it's an aged stop.
I like using found objects because they're familiar, everybody knows what they are, and they're part of the world that we all inhabit. I take things that are ubiquitous and familiar and tweak them in some way, and, or just point something out about them. In 1991, I made a piece called Cold Dark Matter and Exploded View, and I used that title to describe a piece which was a garden shed that I assembled in a gallery full of objects, and then I asked the British Army to blow up the shed for me, which they did. The shed seems like the place full of baggage. I like the fact that it's ubiquitous, it's a depository. I spent my childhood working hard on a small holding, doing many hours of hard graft, from milking cows by hand, mucking out pigs, doing rhythmic tasks, doing monotonous tasks. And I think that choreography is still there in my work. My parents weren't keen at all on me pursuing art. I left home and went to Wolverhampton Poly. Wolverhampton was a gritty urban space. You know, it had anti-Nazi League rallies and racism and, you know, urban blight. My aesthetic changed. I began to look at decay as something that possibly could have some value in the world. I like playing a lot with the idea of abstraction and representation, so there's a lot of looking. And it's part of a battery of electric shocks that build up into something that can spark into something that becomes a work. I think with cracks, the obsession with cracks is almost like a childhood thing. And now I'm a mum and I've got an 11-year-old, and for years I was walking my daughter to school and we would play Don't Step on the Cracks. You're filling all the cracks in that I'm interested in. These have been here for a long time and now you fill them in. This is terrible.
Every time you fix and this is road, council no helping, this is road, rubbish road, this is.
Never mind.
Thank you.
Bye. Very often get my best ideas walking down the street or in conversation. You know, those everyday conversations that I might have. Somehow it kind of throws you into a different gear.
The cracks that I got to know so well over these years of walking near to school, I've decided to almost like deify them, you know, make them into an object. So I've made a rubber mould of the cracks and then I'm having those cast in bronze.
Just the last three sections we've got to pour, so these are scheduled to pour on Thursday.
Wow, they don't look anything like my cracks. They look like trees or something.
Yeah, absolutely.
For me, process is incredibly important. I think the material is important, the process is important, and it's a combination of what those two things together make the work. The material is important in this piece, and it's gone through a process already, which is done by experts, not by me. But I think the work is just a record of those two things, really. Oh, wow. Wow, it's amazing. For the first half of my degree I was doing painting, and because of that I missed some of the induction courses in sculpture. So I didn't learn those sculptural techniques, whether they be welding or modelling in clay or carving, anything traditional. Watching an aluminium pour, it's great, it looks like silver. It's giving me ideas. I think that really helped me in a way, it liberated me from technique, and I always, in the last few years, harness technique that's out there in the world. So if I want to cast something in bronze, well, I'll use a bronze foundry, or if I want to use a steamroller, I'll employ a steamroller driver. If I want to throw things off cliffs, I'll just throw them myself.
So we're at the early stages, obviously, at the moment. Most of the castings are actually now in metal, obviously in sections. So we're casting it, obviously, in sections. So we've been working on, obviously, removing the shell, removing the feeders. So at the moment, obviously, they are still sort of raw castings, if you like. We've still got to do all the fixings, etc. And it's very exciting. The Cornelia's deadline really is the end of this month. So at the moment we've got the vast majority of it's cast in bronze. The sections have been cleaned off and they're sort of now being prepared for the point where they're going to be joined and assembled and final fixings.
So I like this because the lumpy bit is where the soil was of the crack, you know, so the liquid filled right down to the earth's surface. And then that's a bit of a chip out of the paving stone, and that's why it's got a flat surface, you know. So these smooth bits are to do with bits missing from the stone, yeah. So it's a bit of nature and a bit of man. This is really, you know, getting very wonderful to see it in a tangible object. Something that was just a crack has now become an object. It's really giving birth to an object with help from experts. I love coming to these kind of places because they have expertise I haven't got. And it's just like I realise everything is a step-by-step process, and it all edges me closest to what I want. So it's good.
In 30 pieces of silver, I used a steamroller, and I laid all these objects out on the path, and I got the steamroller to run over everything. All these silver objects that I bought from various places, we were united in one death. So I picked up all the debris and suspended it in 30 pools. And then the piece, which looked like water is hovering above the ground, it became like a natural object.
BBC Radio 4. Well, now it's time for Desert Island Discs with Kirsty Young.
My castaway this week is Sydney.
My theory about why I became an artist, or why I do what I do, is play was a guilty pleasure. And so I think I've chosen a career where play is okay, although it's hard work too. It's somehow work and play are very conflated in my work.
It's a wonderful voice, and she used to sing wonderful songs.
Times have changed, and we've often rewound the clock since the Puritans got a shock.
I'm doing these drawings for my show, which is coming up, and they are grids based on targets for shooting guns. And I had this wire made out of bullets that have been melted down and drawn into wire. And when they make wire, the process is called drawing. So it's literally drawing the bullets into long lines.
In olden days, a glimpse of stockings was looked down as something shocking. Now, heaven knows, anything goes.
So this is taken from a target, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to puncture holes in a grid, so I can use that as a template to thread the bullet wire through. But I like the idea of this kind of violent thing being made into something a little bit more formal and considered. But I think violence has been there for a long time for me in the work, and I think I suppose violence is there in sculptural practice traditionally. You know, you get to forge the metal, you get to chip away at the stone. So there's lots of little violent acts going on all the time, but by the time you get your traditionally finished piece, you know, that's all been smoothed over, and you can't see the kind of violence that's gone into making something. And somehow the bullet, with all its energy and its potential for death and its potential for, you know, for all kinds of things, and then having that